Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology turned podcast. And everyone, welcome into the program today. I hope that you're having a fantastic week. It's been a wild one. It's been a hot one for some people, and it's been a crazy one for the news. But today on the show, we have Ralph Bond. He joins us every Friday to talk about a number of stories. And yeah, these stories are going to be things that you may not have heard of, things that we don't really cover in our traditional show, and things that, are really, I dare say, positive. So if you want to hear more, stay tuned. ComputerAmerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future show notes, articles, contests, giveaways, everything and anything that Computer America does. Our website is going to be the best place to find more information. While you're there, find social media, give us a follow, give us a like, all that good stuff. And hey, everyone, thank you for tuning in. So with that being said, it's going to be the 4th here, and I think, to show you how good I am with days, tomorrow is going to be the 4th. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you have a fantastic 250th. It's going to be a different one. So everyone, welcome onto the program once again, Mr. Ralph Bond. So Ralph, how have you been?
I'm doing okay, and I'll tell you, this news week, the news and things going on in the world. There's a great Willie Nelson song where he says, "The world's all going to pot, and we're sure going to miss it a lot." But
there you go.
The pot reference is a wink and nod, of course. But anyway, if you're new to the show, welcome, of course. And let's explain what Ben and I do every Friday. We look at 4 articles that show us key trends and developments in all things science and technology, including, of course, almost every story includes artificial intelligence these days. But we look at things like robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, agricultural tech, construction tech, space research, physics, on and on and on. But here's the key, especially this news week. Oh my gosh. Here's the key. Most important of all, we're going to give you hope for a better future thanks to amazing breakthroughs happening every single day in the world of science and technology.
Absolutely. And while I mess with this filter, but everyone, if you want to follow along as we kind of read and see my green screen just completely freak out, you can follow along with the video portion. We appreciate that. And I'll show you, kind of the videos and the articles in the background as we do this. But if you're strictly listening on audio, that's okay too. We're going to describe everything, but come on out, get the show notes, and it will have links to everything as well as, all the key points. And sometimes Ralph even throws some stuff in there, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. But yeah, Ralph, let's start with, for the longest time, we talked a bit there about Intel's struggles to get, from I think it was the 13 nanometer down to the 7 nanometer. And they were working, I think it was AMD was able to get down to a 5 or something like that. It was the shrinkage of these processors, of these computer chips is always kind of forefront, Ralph, because whoever, size matters, and whoever gets the smallest chip is kind of in the lead. And I think story number 1 really highlights this.
Yeah. Shrinking transistors has been the name of the game for decades, right? And so this story comes from techtimes.com, but was covered by many other outlets in the technology world as well. So you can easily find it. But the headline here is IBM unveils the world's first sub 1 nanometer chip technology. The subhead for this article is "The Lab Milestone Stacks Transistors in 3D through production, though production is at least 5 years away." So this is a good example of a trend, an early research breakthrough that will come to market maybe in about 5 years is the estimate for that one. Again, in the show notes, folks, we have the links, images, and text that's highlighted in blue is information I've inserted to augment things, because often the articles are written for experts, not me. who just know all this stuff, and I insert little helpful tutorials along the line. So check that out. So IBM has announced what it calls the world's first sub 1 nanometer chip technology, a major step forward in making computer chips smaller, faster, and more efficient. Now, reminder, a nanometer is a unit of length equal to 1/1000th of a meter. So they've gone sub 1/1000th of a meter to make their transistors for their chip.
Yeah, it when you're talking about these small scales, it's always, super easy to see, super easy to forget just how small that we're
Right.
talking here. And we're talking,
Yeah.
butting up against physics, grain of sand
Mm-hmm.
has nothing on this
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Yeah.
It's astonishing. The fab that you would need to pull this off also is just amazing. And also, a funny thing occurs to me too. You think about IBM. Most of us maybe think of IBM as a stodgy old business technology company, and so no. Here they have this research. They've pulled off a sub 1 nanometer chip technology. Pretty impressive. So the new design uses a 0.7 nanometer transistor architecture, pushing beyond the limits of today's leading chips. So why does this matter? In computing, shrinking transistors means you can fit more of them onto a chip, and more transistors usually means more processing power and lower energy use. And some of you super geeks out there might be thinking, oh yeah, this is just more life to Moore's law. So remember Gordon Moore, co-founder of Intel, observed in 1965, that transistor counts on chips were increasing exponentially. Initially, he estimated a doubling every year, later revising it in 1975 to every 2 years as the industry matured. So there's the whole thing about packing more and more transistors on a chip by shrinking.
Yeah, I think, when I was, kind of growing up, Moore's law was taught to us in the books as 18 months. So,
Yeah.
some say it's slowing down, Ralph, but then you get these kind of breakthroughs, and this technology that we're talking about here could be one of them. AI could be another, where you kind of push back and kind of get back the momentum that Moore's law had kind of lost. So
Yeah.
it stutters. It stutters.
It's funny and it's interesting at all the same time. So IBM says this new chip, get ready for this, folks. IBM says this new chip can pack nearly 100 billion transistors onto a chip about the size of a fingernail. Oh, the new sub 1 nanometer chip is almost twice as dense as its previous 2 nanometer chip introduced in 2021. And the breakthrough comes from a new 3D structure IBM calls nanostack. So instead of arranging transistors mostly side by side, nanostack stacks them vertically. And I love this line from the article because it really helps a layperson like me get this. Think of it like building upward instead of outward when you run out of land. This makes better use of space and boosts efficiency. And IBM claims the new design could deliver up to 50% better performance or 70% lower power consumption compared to its earlier 2 nanometer chips. And that could be important for power hungry technologies like artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and advanced smartphones. And of course, if you're thinking about data centers, that would apply as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's stop for a second. Reality check, okay? This is still a research breakthrough, not a product you can buy yet. IBM expects chips based on this technology could reach manufacturing in about 5 years, likely through partners such as Samsung and Rapidus. And I went, I know
I had
Samsung,
never heard of
of
Rapidus,
course.
yeah.
Yeah, me too. And so in the show notes, I've inserted a little thing about this Japanese semiconductor manufacturer who apparently is quite skilled at extremely cutting edge manufacturing. So check that out.
Yeah, a lot of production is done in Southeast Asia, in Japan, South Korea, places like that, Taiwan.
Yeah.
That's a big area of manufacturing. And Ralph, it's awesome that they're coming up with these breakthroughs, but then you hear about, building these fabrication units to actually make these things. And, I think Intel announced that they're going to build one, or, other companies said that they were going to build some here in America and other places. And Ralph, it takes like 15, 20 years to get these things off the ground, from, project start to producing chips. It takes it a long time, and it kind of makes you wonder, Ralph, like, how do you build the next generation of chip building manufacturing if, you're making these breakthroughs every 5 years or so, and it takes 15 years to build the plant to make these things? It's
exactly right.
It's a very complicated thing, but still,
yes.
sub 1 nanometer. I did not think, and I know that Intel said that the angstrom is what they're kind of working on as well. It's like 7 angstrom or something like that.
Yeah, that's another way to measure it, right?
Yeah, and everyone's kind of chasing for it, Ralph. But I look forward to when it finally lands, because it's power saving is probably the best thing of this whole article. So
yes, agree.
So very, very cool. And admittedly, the pictures of these things always don't leave a lot to be desired, but suffice to say, they are impressive. So good job to IBM. And like you said, IBM doesn't have that flashy, I guess kind of public facing kind of front to its company, but as far as cutting edge and still very relevant, IBM is not just like a Nokia or something like that. They're very, very relevant in today's technology. So
it's the kind of development you might expect from an NVIDIA, for example. But here it is, good old IBM.
Yeah, just the nerd in the back, just doing its homework. That's what we like to see. So story number 1, story number 2. We're gonna go ahead and jump down, and we're heading on down to Edinburgh. And this is going to be a subject near and dear. We've interviewed a lot of companies that are working on e-waste. E-waste is a topic that comes up often. Ralph, think about how much technology in our daily lives, like toys are stuffed with them. You can buy little throwaway doodads and trinkets with them, with speakers and chips, and they connect to your phone. Ralph, like, it's so cheap and easy to buy what is almost a throwaway product with e-waste built into it. But taking care of e-waste is something that we really do not have a good way to deal with in so many ways. So, we need stories like number 2, because we're still figuring out how to deal with e-waste.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the trends that you and I have been following for a number of years, among many trends, is recycling of electronics. So this is a great story. This comes from Edinburgh Innovations, the university, of course. The headline here is University Licenses Breakthrough E-Waste Gold and Copper Recover Technology. This is such a great story. So a little backup here, or a little foundation setting, does amplify what you were saying a moment ago. E-waste is one of the fastest growing waste problems on Earth. Experts estimate global e-waste could reach 93.5 million tons by 2030, but only about 20% today is currently recycled properly. Yet the waste contains enormous value. 1 ton of typical e-waste can hold over $46,000 worth of gold, plus about $2,000 worth of copper. I didn't, that's a fun factoid that I didn't know.
Yeah, really cool. I definitely knew about the gold, and obviously gold has, if you're at all into finances, gold has kind of shot up lately. And that's one of the nice little positives, it's like, you can buy gold, whatever. But Ralph, it makes recovering that gold all the more worthwhile, and hopefully that e-waste all the more dealt with.
Yeah, exactly right. And going on here, it says researchers at the University of Edinburgh have developed a new method for recovering valuable metals like gold and copper from electronic waste, which of course could include all kinds of things, old phones, laptops, and circuit boards, etc. Circuit boards are a real classic. The university has now licensed their technology to the mining and recycling company Lithium Universe to help scale it worldwide. In the show notes, I've embedded a link to this company. Very, very interesting. Again, the company's called Lithium Universe. Fascinating website, by the way. Now, the process that they've created at the university is called gold copper diamide extraction. And of course, it has to be an acronym, GCDE. Instead of using traditional recycling methods, such as super hot smelting furnaces or harsh toxic chemicals like cyanide and mercury, to extract these copper and gold and so forth. The new technique the university came up with works at a much lower temperatures and uses specially designed reusable organic molecules to grab gold and copper out of the waste. There's a lot more going on in this technology. We just give you the highlights, folks. That's why the show notes are so important at computeramerica.com, because if you want to learn more, you can dive in by clicking on the links.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that's so great, the author says, think of it like a molecular filter that selectively pulls out the valuable metals from the e-waste. Wow, pretty cool.
Yeah, from our past segments when we've talked about recycling, it usually is, unfortunately in a third world country, and they have giant vats that they just shovel all this stuff into, and it's a very messy, awfully taxing on the environment kind of process, which is why it's not done here in America. It's not done in, other countries. It's shipped off to other places. But Ralph, it's, a better way. We might actually see this recycling done here in the United States, not just shipped off elsewhere. So yeah, there's a lot of promise here.
Yeah, there is, exactly. And the big advantage of the gold copper diamide extraction process the university came up with is that it could make recycling cleaner, cheaper, and far less polluting. Yeah. So it's a winner all the way around. So instead of treating old electronics as trash, this approach treats them as urban ore, like mining ore. I love this phrase, urban ore, a rich source of reusable materials. If commercialized successfully, it could reduce mining, lower environmental damage, and strengthen the circular economy, the circular recycling reuse economy. Pretty great stuff.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and it seems like they have at least hit on something that, even if it's not every single piece is recycled, even though that's what you'd like, if this just makes even a portion of that easier, I could see a lot of places really jumping on this and trying to extract that urban ore as they are calling it.
Yeah, isn't that fun? I love that, urban ore.
Very different. But
that's O-R-E, by the way, folks.
Yes. Urban ore, O-R-E, absolutely. But yeah, I hope to see more of it because, Ralph, that's kind of almost like why you feel so bad throwing away, which, by the way, just a PSA for everyone out there. I recently had to get rid of, I want to say it was 6 UPSs that were dead and no longer working, and a couple of laptops. Best Buy has a great free electronic recycling program. You just take it in there, you hand it to them, say recycle it. They do a good job of wiping, which, by the way, you should always wipe your own data off your hard drives and stuff like that. But they will recycle everything for free. So just a shout out to Best Buy on that. For recycling. So
yeah, Best Buy does have a great program, and I'll throw in another one. This was a big surprise to me a couple of years ago. I can't say this applies to all of the United States, but in Oregon, where I live, our Goodwill will take broken, damaged, whatever you want to call it, e-waste, your old laptop or whatever. They tell me that if it's not functioning and can't be resold, they'll scrub the hard drive and properly submit these for recycling. So there's another outlet for you along with Best Buy that's everywhere.
Yeah. And by the way, Goodwill is a great place for, like those 15-year-old laptops you have sitting around. You're like, never going to use that again. Hey, Goodwill. There's some avid Linux user out there that goes to Goodwill every week looking for old laptops to do something with. So, feed your local Linux user. They're hungry. Okay, everyone. Story number 2, story number 3, and we're going to go ahead and talk about Lidar and, self-driving cars. Ralph, if you've seen some of the videos that come out on social media of self-driving cars, there was one where there was like a routing issue. I don't know when this happened, a couple months ago, and just a quiet neighborhood I believe in California, just had like 60 self-driving cars all getting into a traffic jam in the middle of this neighborhood because the map just kind of said they were going the wrong way. It was just a big old cluster jam. Really bad. But no, sometimes they're funny, but hey, improving self-driving cars is something that I think, we definitely need to happen and needs to happen, and it is going to happen. So story number 3 might be on that track. So Ralph.
Yeah, but then here's something to think about. Self-driving freight trucks. That's coming, and it's something to think about. So this is a fun story, technologically speaking, as well, and it does apply to things like self-driving cars. This came from Newsbreak.com, but was picked up by a number of other services as well. Headline: World's first native color Lidar will let robots and self-driving cars map the world in full color 3D. We'll explain why this is so important, why this is such a breakthrough. And by the way, in the show notes, folks, again, come out to computeramerica.com. I have a link to a really great video. It's a lot of fun to look at, and you will immediately get it as to what they're talking about. But let's get into this. A company called Ouster, O-U-S-T-E-R, has introduced what it says is the world's first mass-produced native color LiDAR system called Rev 8. This could be a major step forward for robots and self-driving cars because it allows them to see the world in both full color and 3D at the same time. And by the way, native color LiDAR means a LiDAR sensor that captures color and depth at the same moment or instantly. Normally, autonomous machines use 2 separate systems: cameras for color and LiDAR for measuring distance. So that's today's norm. These have to be carefully synchronized and calibrated, as you can imagine. This new Rev 8 combines both into a single sensor, making the system simpler, faster, and potentially cheaper. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more. And by the way, we're showing the video behind us as we talk. But
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more that goes into it than just someone said, "What if we just made 2 into 1?" And someone goes, "Wow, what a great idea! Why didn't we think of that before?" But no, it's and seeing the images definitely really highlights that this thing is getting quite the range of reds and yellows and greens and blues. It's,
Yes.
It's not that washed out. It looks good.
Yeah. It's just, that video is wonderful. Friends, if you're listening to us as a podcast, I couldn't encourage you more to come out and get the show notes and get to this video. It's wonderful. So a little reminder here: LiDAR works by sending out laser pulses and measuring how long they take to bounce back, creating a 3D map of the surroundings. What makes Rev 8 different is that it also captures the ambient light hitting objects so it can record their actual colors. Wow. Now, in the show notes, I've inserted a bunch of key performance specs, deep, geeky specs about this technology. You can check that out. I won't go through that right now. Let's get on to the rest of the story here. So this means a robot could not only detect an object's shape and distance, but also identify important color-based details, like whether a traffic light is red or green, or what color a warning sign is. Rather important things for a autonomous vehicle. And in terms of technology, the sensor can detect objects up to 500 meters away. That's about 1,640 feet. And process trillions of photons per second. Trillions of photons per second, giving it extremely detailed vision. That last little nugget just melts my mind.
Yeah.
And to wrap,
go ahead and wrap it up and then we'll talk.
Yeah. Experts say this could improve safety and help create better AI world models, allowing machines to understand and navigate complex environments more like humans do. Wow.
Yeah, it's just that last part, more like humans do. And, it really goes to show just, during the video, it showed, obviously a LiDAR can sense, oh, that's a traffic light. And then, maybe there'd be some system. But like to understand the traffic light is currently showing green or red or yellow. That is just another data point that I guess before they still had, like they said, but it was just, they had to sync it up. And if you get that,
they had to sync it up,
the whole thing kind of, shuts down, I'm sure, for safety reasons. Right. There's, it's not just, a stop sign because it's, an octagonal sign, but it's red, and it, has that information. Just another data point to help self-driving cars do what we do easily.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Syncing up two separate systems or multiples of systems is one of the most challenging things in programming and is so vital when you're talking about autonomous vehicles. So this is a really important breakthrough.
yeah, and just to think that they could make this easier, cheaper, more accessible, because Ralph, we've seen other technologies, which I always go back to Tesla, where they're using essentially cameras on their car to do what they're trying to get Lidar to do. It's cheaper, but it is not at all safer. And this is really the technology that needs to, really mature to get those truly safe self-driving cars. So
Yeah.
I like this a lot, and just robots can see in color. And Ralph, not even like cars. Like eventually, this is probably also going to be in robots in warehouse settings. These are going to be in robots in homes. Yeah, just being able to see color. It's like, oh, go grab my blue sweater. It will just automatically know blue. So
yeah, it's very cool. Very cool story.
Important. So awesome. Story number 3, amazing. Story number 4. And story number 4 generally lets down. No, it doesn't let down. It's usually a very, very impressive breakthrough in those fields of medicine. And Ralph's going to tell us more, but this one is really incredible today.
Yeah, actually, usually our 4th story, friends, if you're brand new to the show, looks at medical technology very specifically. This one can relate to that, and you'll understand in a moment, but this was such a big story. This actually got some mainstream press pickup because it was so profound. But let's get into this. This story I happened to pull from science.org. Again, many, many news outlets covered this story this week, this big blockbuster news. Headline, lab created SpudCell, SpudCell, we'll explain that in a moment, marks stunning step toward building life from scratch. Subhead, a synthetic cell can now grow and divide? Now, but it's still far from alive, as the subhead says. So this is some pretty profound stuff that's both fascinating, amazing, and potentially maybe scary all at the same time, but we'll get into that. There's a link to the university's posting on this and other links to the organization that's working on this, but let's get into this. Scientists at the University of Minnesota have made a major breakthrough in synthetic biology by building a lab-made cell called SpudCell, a simplified artificial cell assembling from non-living chemicals. Now, I inserted a little side note in here. SpudCell is named after the first artificial Russian satellite, Sputnik 1. The name comes directly from its creator, Dr. Kate Adamala, I hope I'm saying that right, who explained that the synthetic cell's potato-like appearance inspired the pun SpudCell, and that the name was chosen in a playful reference to the Sputnik 1 satellite the Russians put up in 1957. Now, I was a very little guy at that time, but it was such an earth-shaking story. I even remember as a very young child, everybody freaking out about the Russians putting a satellite up before we did. That was a biggie. So going on here, unlike past synthetic biology projects that modified existing living cells, SpudCell was built almost entirely from scratch, making it one of the closest attempts yet at creating lifelike behavior in a lab. Whoa, this is mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, the implications are, because Ralph, we do a lot of stories throughout the weeks, and folks should definitely go check those out. Of altering cells. A big one has been like taking like virus cells and turning it into a cancer curing, cancer attacking kind of cell.
Right.
It's taking all kinds of cells that are already a thing, an organism, and then making it do what you want. But to make something completely from scratch is that is science. That is peak science fiction.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And of course, to your point about modifying existing cells, stem cells. That's the classic, where you go and you tweak a stem cell to do this or to do that or to grow a new tooth or whatever. So that's a good point to raise at this stage. But let's get into something here that what I'm about to read to you just makes my mind melt. SpudCell can perform several basic activities that real living cells do. it can take in nutrients, it can feed, it can grow, copy its DNA, and divide into new cells. Wow. That's important because these are some of the core behaviors scientists use to define life. Holy smokers.
But can it
Wow.
love? That's really the mark of life. Can it
Yes,
love?
there you go.
Probably not.
So, big reality check here, which of course the article points out, and most of the outlets have covered this well also. However, it is still not truly alive. It cannot fully sustain itself and still depends on outside help, especially lab supplied ribosomes and enzymes to keep functioning. Side note, ribosomes are molecular machines, so to speak, made of RNA and protein that build all of the proteins your cells need. So that they still need a little help here, but this is still quite remarkable. And the cell contains, the SpudCell contains a very small genome, about 90,000 DNA base pairs spread across several DNA molecules. Now, quick reminder, a genome is a complete set of genetic material in an organism's. The researchers know the role of every gene inside the SpudCell, which makes it much easier to study than natural cells, whose systems are far more complex than just the 90,000 DNA base pairs in SpudCell. And I have inserted into the article here a bunch more information about the research team, about the doctor in charge of this, and so on. It's really great. You can check that out if you want to come out to the show notes. But let's get into kind of wrapping this up. So why does this matter? If you haven't already figured out why, I rest my case. But anyway, SpudCell could help scientists better understand how life first began on Earth and may eventually lead to custom designed, I love this, Ben, could lead to custom designed living factories that make medicines, there's the medical link, or fuels, or new materials. It's an early but powerful step toward engineering life itself. Engineering life itself. Wow.
Yeah, I could imagine where, just like I was saying before, you take a cell and you modify it for the purposes that you need. But, I could imagine scientists are like, okay, this cell does this. Like, let's say it's a virus. We want to take out everything that is, harmful and repurpose it for what we need and make it harmful for cancer cells or something like that, Ralph. And I can imagine if you could just start with a clean slate, you don't have to reverse engineer, you don't have to go back or change anything, and you can just start fresh. That would open so many possibilities. And maybe even, Ralph, instead of one thing, it does 2 or 10 or a ton of things. Very, very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. But as I've inserted a blue text in the show notes, again, blue text references things I insert. Side note here, amazing science. No doubt about this. It's incredible science. But some concerns cited in the press and science community in the areas of biocontaminant and environmental safety, evolutionary stability and mutation risk, ethical concerns about creating proto-life, dual use and misuse potential, uncertainty about long-term behavior of these created cells, and public misunderstanding, which of course is probably one of the most important challenges facing this technology. But again, an incredibly important breakthrough that was released and announced this week.
And public misunderstanding, that's the part that we're covering. We're helping you misunderstand just like we do. So we got this. But no, all of those are very, very valid. But Ralph, it's almost like this is a much smaller conversation, I think, ever since stem cells, and kind of how we first got our stem cells and, creating new ones and reverse engineering them from skin cells and things like that, Ralph. Like creating something completely fresh. We've had a much harder ethical debate, and this is one to watch. It's not that you shouldn't have the debate again, but there's a lot of hope that this is a starting point for something very incredible. So really amazing stuff there. And as always, everyone, if you want to check out more, because I guarantee there's more, Ralph has a link in the show notes. Go check out that article.
Yes.
There you go. So Ralph, with that being said, that was our story number 4. Awesome story. And for those who are looking at the video portion, you can see here, well, We're about halfway down the page, and we are wrapping up the show. We're done, and we try to keep the show to about 4 stories. It helps keep the time limit, a little bit lower. But Ralph finds so many stories, so many amazing stories that you should know about these. And these are the honorable mentions, stories that you should know about, you should hear, read, just like we do on the show. But if you want a little bit extra more, if you're, looking for something to do while you're commuting, check out these stories, and Ralph will at least give you the headlines.
That's right. So we have 4 honorable mentions at the end of every show. And our first one comes from ZME Science. Headline: Scientists turn wet coffee grounds into coal-like fuel in just 90 seconds. Subhead: a new process skips energy-intensive drying for recycling coffee waste. Friends, one of the most fascinating things to me personally, now I've been in Oregon for 33 years, so I drink a lot of coffee and a lot of beer. Okay, the thing that blows my mind is how incredibly interesting coffee grounds waste. You don't throw it away in the trash, throw it on your lawn if nothing else. Coffee waste is amazing stuff, but these guys have figured out how to turn it into a coal-like fuel in just 90 seconds. Check that out.
More impressive than myself. I take about 15 minutes to turn my coffee into fuel, so very impressive.
There you go. The next one's really fun from IEEE Spectrum, a very, very well-established, extremely geeky outlet, folks. Headline: Paper battery startup aims to power everything in your house. Subhead: Flint, which is the name of the company, says its battery is sustainable and delivers up to 4.2 volts. What this is what makes Flint's approach different is its heavy use of cellulose, plant-based material, throughout the battery structure. So cellulose, for example, can come from wood products, which we make paper out of, right? So hence this paper battery. Fun story. Check that one out. That's really cool. Our next honorable mention comes from good old interestingengineering.com, one of my favorite go-to sources. Headline: oh yeah, this is cool. Robotic suit simulates weightlessness on Earth to improve astronaut motor skills. The exact same method, subhead here, the exact same method that helps an astronaut steady their hand in zero gravity could support medical care on Earth. Interesting thing. What's going on here? Researchers are testing a robotic exoskeleton that can make astronauts' arms feel like they are weightless right here on Earth. Very cool story. Check that one out. That's fun. And our last honorable mention comes from newscientist.com, another one related to space and NASA potentially. Mars astronauts. They're doing all this research, hoping to get people on Mars at some point, but Mars astronauts may do laundry by blasting clothes with a plasma beam.
It sounds
high tech for a low tech problem.
Yeah, it sounds really weird and strange, but Ralph, I mean, if it was at home and it didn't, bleach my colors, maybe I'd do this as well.
Yes,
why not?
Yes,
save some water. But no, that's and the picture on that, is really really cool looking as well.
Yeah.
But Ralph, amazing stories, and if you want to find out any of those or check out any of those honorable mentions, I highly encourage you to come on out to Computer America, and by the time that you hear this, you will be able to find the show notes up on the site. So Ralph, I want to thank you so much for finding all of these amazing stories, and really, it's been an amazing grab bag of stories this week, and ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have a wonderful 4th, have a great 250, and everyone out there, will catch you on the other side of the next 250. And Ralph, thank you for always putting this together. He'll be back every Friday. And until then, have a great day. Thank you so much. Catch you next time. Bye, everyone.